The ways of jnana and bhakti that Sri Bhagavan enjoined may seem quite different paths, but actually they are far closer together than might appear, and one does not preclude the other. In fact, they can fuse into the single integral path just described. On the one hand, submission to the outer guru leads through his grace to the inner guru that the self-inquiry seeks to discover. And on the other hand, self-inquiry leads to quietude and submission. Both methods strive after the direct subsidence of the mind, only in one case more before the outer, and in the other more before the inner guru. Indirect methods of sadhana seek rather to strengthen and build up the mind in order that it may eventually attain sufficient strength and amplitude to surrender before the spirit. And it is this that Sri Bhagavan referred to as the thief turning policeman to catch the thief that is himself. It is, of course, true that the mind must be strengthened and purified before it will surrender, but with the use of self-inquiry under the grace of Sri Bhagavan, this happens automatically. A devotee, Krishna Jivrajani, once asked about this. It is said in books that one should cultivate all the good or divine qualities in order to prepare oneself for self-realization. And Sri Bhagavan replied, all good or divine qualities are included in jnana, knowledge, and all evil or demonic, asuric qualities in ignorance. When jnana comes, all ignorance goes, and all divine qualities come automatically. If a man is a jnani, he cannot utter a lie or do anything wrong. It is no doubt said in some books that one should cultivate one quality after another and thus prepare for ultimate moksha or deliverance. But for those who follow the jnana or self-inquiry, their sadhana is quite enough in itself for acquiring all divine qualities. They need not do anything else. It may, however, be asked how accessible the self-inquiry is in fact. It is reported in Spiritual Instruction, compiled shortly after Sri Bhagavan came down from Skanda Ashram, that a devotee asked, is it possible for all seekers, whatever their spiritual equipment, to adopt straight away and put into practice this method of inquiry in quest of the self? And Bhagavan replied, no, it is intended only for ripe souls. Others should get the necessary training and practice by adopting such other methods as are suited to their individual development, mental and moral. From the Virupaksha cave period also a similar reply is reported in the elucidations published as Sri Ramana Gita. The so-called other methods include religious and devotional observances, meditation, invocation, mantras, and also pranayamic practices like breath control. Not only are these preparatory to the use of self-inquiry, vichara, but they may be used concurrently with it. Many devotees told Sri Bhagavan that they used such methods prescribed by some guru or asked his authorization to use them, and he listened graciously and approved. But when any found these other methods fall away, he approved of that also. A devotee told him that he no longer found any support from the other methods he had formerly used and asked his authorization to drop them, and Bhagavan replied, yes, all other methods only lead up to vichara. During the later period in the ashram at the foot of the hill, there is no record of any such limitation on the use of vichara being stipulated, whereas one did hear it explicitly enjoined, together with concentration on the heart, on all who ask the way. And this may lead to the conclusion that in the new form in which Sri Bhagavan presented it, Self-inquiry had only then been made really accessible to all through his grace, aspired to use it. On the other hand, it was also observed that so far as evidence is available, few did aspire to use it. Indeed, many who came to the ashram and asked for elucidation of life's mystery or for some discipline to bring them peace or to purify and strengthen their character were patently so far from understanding the doctrine of Advaita or the practice of sadhana of self-inquiry that it was hard for the superficial observer not to feel disappointed or annoyed at the small solace they seemed to be given. But only the surface superficial, for as one observed more closely, one perceived that the real reply was not verbal, but was the silent influence that began to permeate the mind of the questioner. In his exposition, Sri Bhagavan adhered to the ultimate truth which alone the jnani recognizes, just as he adhered to the dictum that, being beyond otherness, the jnani has no relationship and therefore calls none his disciple. But his silent grace, acting upon the mind, enabled it to seek out for itself the most appropriate other methods for its development, as has been already spoken of, in those who simply strove to surrender and keep the mind quiet. Verbal injunctions were not necessary. Each was helped according to his nature, in proportion to his understanding and devotion. As Bhagavan said, "The grace of the Guru is like an ocean. If one comes with a cup, he will only get a cupful. It is no use complaining of the miserliness of the ocean. The bigger the vessel, the more one will be able to carry. It is entirely up to him." An elderly French lady, the mother of one of the devotees, came on a visit to the ashram. She neither understood nor cared to understand the philosophy, but from the time of her visit she became a devout Catholic, although she had been little more than a nominal one before, and she recognized that the change was due to the influence of Sri Bhagavan. It was developments like this, more than verbal expositions, that constituted his teaching. It may also be that, with the passage of time, the ever-increasing graciousness of Sri Bhagavan was binding the devotees to him more closely, and thus preparing their hearts for the self-inquiry through devotion. Not only devotees, but more casual visitors also perceived how gentle, how effulgent his face became in the last years. Through love he led up to knowledge, just as vichara leads through knowledge to love. Devotion to him turned the mind inwards to the self he manifested, just as the quest of the self within awakened unbounded love of the self manifested in him. As one devotee expressed it, "To look at his face, so gripping, so incredibly gracious, and so wise, yet with the innocence of a newborn child, he knows everything there is to know. Sometimes a vibration starts in the heart. Bhagavan, it is the core of my being taken shape by my own externalized heart. Who am I?" And thus, love leads to inquiry. It has not been normal for a master to describe the technique of sadhana openly in speech and writing, as Sri Bhagavan did. This is because such technique has been effective only when imparted to the user of it as upadesa by his guru. Sri Bhagavan's innovation in this matter raises from a different point of view the question, how accessible is vichara? How accessible can any sadhana be that has not been personally enjoined by the guru? Sri Bhagavan himself endorsed the universal tradition that the technique of sadhana is valid only when enjoined by the guru. When asked once whether a man could benefit by mantras picked up casually, he replied, "No, he must be initiated into them." How is it, then, that he explained that self-inquiry so openly, and sometimes even referred visitors to the written expositions in his books? The only explanation is that he is far more than the guru of those who were able to approach him physically in Tiruvannamalai. His is the authority, and he gave the sanction. In this spiritually dark age of Kali Yuga, when many seek but a guru is rare to find, Bhagavan himself took form on earth as the Sadguru, the divine guide, of all who turned to him, and proclaimed a sadhana accessible to all who, through his grace, find it accessible. Not only was the use of the vichara not confined to those who could go to Tiruvannamalai, it was also not confined to Hindus. The teachings of Sri Bhagavan is the essence of all religions, proclaiming openly that which was hidden. Advaita is the central postulate of Taoism and Buddhism. The doctrine of the inner guru is the doctrine of the Christ in you, restored the plenitude of its meaning. The vichara penetrates to the ultimate truth of the Islamic creed of Shahada, that there is no God but God, that there is no self but the self. Sri Bhagavan was beyond the differences between religions. Hindu books were available to him, so he read them and expounded according to their terms, but he was also prepared to expound in the terms of other religions when asked. The sadhana he enjoined was not dependent on any religion. Not only Hindus came to him, but Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, and Parsis, and he never expected any to change his religion. Devotion to the Guru and the flow of his grace leads to the deeper reality of every religion, and self-inquiry leads to the ultimate truth behind all religion.